If we here at Cultaholic were to present a list that included every single solitary time a wrestler showed up in a movie, the presentation would be longer than the last 3 WrestleManias combined. From icons like The Rock and Hulk Hogan taking top billing, to notable grapplers showing up in supporting roles, think Steve Austin in The Expendables or George the Animal Steele in the criminally underrated Ed Wood, the silver screen has had more than its wrestling fill through the generations. Coming up with a mere 10 entries for this list was a bit of a challenge, as one would have to define what a cameo is. For purposes of compiling this particular top 10, we decided on 3 crucial criteria. Number 1, the movie had to have been a major release. Number 2, the wrestler cannot play themselves, nor can they play a wrestler type of character with a different name. And number 3, their part had to be so minor that they didn't have too much bearing on the plot. For each list item, we won't reveal the wrestler's identity until well into the entry. That way, if you're familiar with the movie but don't recall there being a wrestler in it, you'll be in for a bit of a surprise at the reveal. It's just more fun that way, and I'm very, very fun. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are 10 forgotten wrestler movie cameos. Join us! Number 10, moving. Few comic geniuses that have walked this earth will ever match the wit and wisdom of Richard Pryor. Pryor's stand-up performances deftly and fearlessly touched on politics and race, influencing scores of comics who came after him. Pryor's edginess could often be found in his prolific film career, including in the film Moving, an R-rated comedy about a family man whose new job requires that he relocate about 2,500 miles to Boise, Idaho. Part of the film's humor comes from the move itself, which is presided over by a group of sketchy individuals that don't take too much pride in their job. One of the movers came in the form of 450-pound King Kong Bundy, whose character went by the name of Gorgo. The sight of an irritated Bundy, shirtless in overalls, standing over the frazzled leading man was enough to make Pryor scream in horror. While Pryor has had better films, this one at least gave us the oddly charming visual of Bundy lazing on a sofa while peaceably drinking lemonade, so there is that. Number 9, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. The world's foremost pizza-eating, crime-fighting reptiles have existed in various forms of media over the past 3 decades, and a few movies from the early 90s were the peak of the first wave of Turtle Mania. In the second film, the Turtles once more do battle with their supreme enemy, Shredder, the head of the Foot Clan, identifiable by his metallic helmet and face mask. As the film approaches its climax, Shredder consumes a vial of the transformational ooze and becomes Super Shredder, a much more immense and powerful version of himself, in the hopes that the Ninja Turtles would be unable to thwart him. To play the role, a larger actor was required, and one was found in a WCW wrestler named Master Blaster Steel, better known by his real name, Kevin Nash. Several years before beginning his career-changing run as Diesel, Nash had a brief Hollywood foray as a grander form of the Ninja Turtles' famed foe. It is unclear, however, whether or not Big Sexy ranks this role higher on his list of career achievements than his Magic Mike appearance. Number 8, Natural Born Killers. Oliver Stone's polarizing 1994 film looks at the glorification of violence and murder by the mass media, at how depraved individuals are granted celebrity status through their abhorrent exploits. One of the most controversial films of all time, Killers has earned criticism for ironically denouncing the light that gets cast on deplorable violence, while at the same time reveling in its own portrayal of graphic mayhem. Lead actor Woody Harrelson plays the role of Mickey Knox, a shameless sociopath whose belligerent actions and shaved head were the partial inspiration for Steve Austin's Stone Cold character. Austin even wore sunglasses similar to Knox in some rarely seen 1996 promotional photos. But it's not Austin that cameoed in Killers, it was Bret the Hitman Hart, whose scene was ultimately deleted from the final cut of the film. While key details aren't readily known, what is known is that Hart played the role of a prison inmate. There was also a scene in Killers where Rodney Dangerfield is watching wrestling on TV and has some derogatory things to say about Tatanka that we frankly cannot repeat. Number 7, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Die Hard films seem like a decent place to sneak in a wrestler cameo. The bad guys usually have some serious muscle working within their cells, and there are plenty of wrestlers capable of playing a sneering roughneck. Hell, Carl from the first Die Hard movie could have crossed over into professional wrestling, given how frightening his murderous glare looks. For the third movie of the Bruce Willis series, that really should have ended after the third movie, Willis's John McClane had to contend with the ruthless and vengeful Simon Gruber, played by Jeremy Irons. One of Gruber's henchmen was a familiar face to WWE viewers of the early 1990s, that of Finnish powerhouse Ludwig Borga. Borga, along with other associates of Gruber, disguised themselves at different points, first when they broke into the Federal Reserve Building, and later as officers of NYPD. Borger may have just had a small part as a menacing crook in the third Die Hard film, but just looking at him, it's clear that he more than looked the part. Number 6, Jingle All The Way. After T2, it was seemingly all downhill for our good friend Arnold, with pretty much the sole exception being True Lies and maybe Eraser. The poor Governator fell into pale imitators of his action movie glory run, but things weren't all bad. He also got to star in jovial Christmas classic Jingle All The Way. The movie featured a brief appearance from a man who will undoubtedly join Arnie and Hulk Hogan in WWE's Hall of Fame one day. In one scene, Arnold finds himself having to go toe-to-toe with a 7-foot-tall Kris Kringle, played by then WCW star Paul the Giant White, aka The Big Show. The short brawl demonstrates the sort of paint-by-numbers screwball comedy that Jingle skewed towards, with Big Show dropping a witticism like, "I'm gonna deck your halls, bub." It also features a little person getting punched off of Arnold's shoulders, a sequence that perhaps a certain Connecticut wrestling tycoon found to be the height of true comedy. Number 5, Batman and Robin. Hang on, we're not done talking about Arnold movies yet, and this one is truly awful. Not even Ben Batfleck's caped crusaderism could trump nippled batsuits, the Bat credit card, and Arnold making ice-related puns that would drive even Becky Lynch insane. Joining Arnie in this earnest attempt to kill off the Batman franchise for good was his longtime pal Jesse the Body Ventura. Previously, Ventura had shared the screen with Schwarzenegger in Predator and The Running Man, neither of which Batman and Robin could ever dream of equaling. Here, Ventura has a minimalist part as a guard at Arkham Asylum who is charmed by Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy character, before being done in by a kiss. Meanwhile, 11 years later, The Dark Knight featured a cameo from Zeus, who played a convict on board one of the bomb-rigged ships. If you ever come across any of the videos from 1989 of Ventura interviewing Zeus and Randy Savage, keep this weird duality in mind. Number 4, Highlander Endgame. There can be only one, was the famous proclamation, which is kind of silly because the original Highlander spawned a handful of sequels. Oh, and there was a WWE tag team called the Highlanders that had 2 members who never once fought over the right to be the only one. And for anyone who saw Highlander 2, The Quickening, they wished there was only one. The Highlander series limped on into the new millennium, where its 4th theatrical release was graced by one half of the most totally awesome tag team in the business at the time, one Adam Edge Copeland. Edge has a small part as an extortionist bandit in 18th century Ireland, who, along with his scheming cohorts, falls prey to the heroic MacLeods after they're caught in the midst of a strong-armed hold-up. Edge had to miss several WWE events, flying to Romania in order to play the role of a sword-wielding crook. The scene is notable for some shoddy production, as Edge's lines were later redubbed by another actor, lending the feel of some stereotypical foreign monster movie. Number 3, The Devil's Rejects. If nothing else, Rob Zombie's attempts at filmmaking capture the spirit of classic schlock productions, with the sort of stripped-down cinematography that can be viscerally eye-catching. Although some of his projects have proven to be unappealing, we're looking at you, unnecessary Halloween reboots, The Devil's Rejects may well be the best work on his resume, with well-shaped, fleshed-out characters carrying out Zombie's vision of unapologetic B-grade horror. Making an appearance in the film is one Diamond Dallas Page, playing the role of Billy Ray Snapper, an unkempt, foul-mouthed bounty hunter that partners up with Danny Trejo of Machete fame. In his role, Page looks like Adam Rose if Rose hadn't showered or brushed his teeth for more than a year. Together, he and Trejo, self-dubbed the Unholy Two, help William Forsythe round up the murderous Firefly family shortly before Forsythe sadistically tortures them. It's worth watching just to see a flexible, clean-living yoga guru like DDP looking like the absolute scum of the earth and being quite happy about his circumstances. Number 2, The Ringer. On paper, The Ringer boasted a plot that read like a dream for anyone who loves politically incorrect comedy. Johnny Knoxville plays a man who reluctantly pretends to be developmentally disabled so that he can compete in the Special Olympics and help his uncle win a bet to pay off his gambling debts. The movie could have been way more outrageous than what it was, and in actuality, the movie affords some genuine dignity to the characters therein. The movie was directed by Barry Blaustein, one of the writers who gave us the ever-quotable Coming to America. Blaustein also directed the famed wrestling documentary Beyond the Mat and scored appearances for The Ringer from 2 wrestling stars. Jesse Ventura provided his voice for one scene, while Terry Funk shows up in a brief role as a debt collector named Frankie. Funk had previously graced the silver screen in films like Paradise Alley, Over the Top, and Roadhouse, and sadly he never once used his branding iron in any of them. Number 1, Reno 911 Miami. One of Comedy Central's truest gems was Reno 911, an episodic mockumentary that depicted the working lives of the Reno Sheriff Department, and all of the harebrained hijinks that the deputies inevitably get caught up in. The series crossed over into this film, in which the officers attend a police convention in, as the title suggests, Miami. And wouldn't you know, as the result of a terror attack that quarantines all of the other cops that are attending the convention, the incompetents from Reno are the only police force that Miami has. That's where we're treated to a short appearance from Miami's favourite son, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. While the People's Champion has rightfully headlined a great number of films, his time in Reno 911 Miami is short, literally. Rock plays a stoic, tough-talking SWAT team agent that comes in to oversee the Reno officers, only to accidentally kill himself with a grenade in the midst of his rallying speech. In Rock's eyes, he probably wishes his time in Doom went just as fast.
Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. You can follow us on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.